Hi, I'm JP Willett, mediator, coach, and family specialist. Pastors, judges, therapists, and other professionals refer clients to me to help them navigate some of the most difficult parts of life and transform life's inevitable bumps into opportunities. This is the fourth in a series of 5 videos that I've created to help you navigate conflict and make those transformations in your own life. In the first video, we addressed the burning question, why is it so hard to have real conversations about important things? In the second video, we talked about how to get really clear on what it is that you actually want and how to say that in a way that doesn't sound selfish or petty. In the third video, we talked about how to actually help someone else hear what's important to you. You can say it all you want, but if they can't even hear you, what difference does it make? I hope that you've seen those videos. If you've missed them, go back and watch them because they are awesome. They will help prepare you for what we're going to talk about today, which is how to have an important conversation about real issues. A tough thing to do. I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So if you have watched the videos, then you've done the work necessary to prepare for this conversation. The first thing you want to remember when confronting a difficult conversation is to separate the person from the problem. Most of the time, when I ask people what the real problem is, they will start describing the other person. Well, as long as another person is your problem, you have a problem that is unresolvable, so long as that other person is going to remain in the picture. If your solution involves removing somebody from the picture, then that's not necessarily effective conflict resolution, and that won't work in every situation. Eventually, you're going to have to face conflict. That often tends to lead to a pattern of broken relationships, and maybe you've experienced that in your life. I know I have in mine. If this relationship isn't working, just move on to another. And sometimes that's the appropriate thing to do. But if that's a pattern in your life, then there's some tools that I want to give you so that that doesn't have to continue. Now, if you can see the problem as something separate from the person, then you can see the problem as something you can come alongside with the other person and look at the problem and solve the problem together, collaboratively. As long as the problem is the other person and it remains between you and them, you're going to have an unresolvable problem. So take a deep breath. Okay, take another one. That felt good. I think I needed that. And visualize coming alongside the other person and actually looking out at the problem. This is something the two of you are going to face together. This is the first step to approaching a difficult conversation. It's an important step. Don't skip it. So the next thing you want to do when you're addressing the other person is to acknowledge the situation and affirm something about the relationship. I'm sure you can think of one positive thing to say about your relationship. So it could look like this. Look, I know that these last few weeks have been tough. We've been together for several years now, and I really appreciate that you've stuck with me these last few years, especially these last few weeks, and I want you to know I really appreciate that you're willing to take the time to come and have this conversation with me. Now, maybe you don't know the other person very well. Maybe this is a coworker. Maybe you're new on the job or they're new on the job. It could look like, hey, look, I know I've only been here for a couple months and I don't think we got off on the right foot. So I realize it's been difficult for both of us. My hope for us is that we can work well together. I think we both have a lot to offer, and I think that we can make good things happen together, but we just need to sort a few things out. Isn't that much nicer than having someone come up to you and say, look, we need to talk before I explode? Does that set off a different vibe? I know it does. So what you've done in starting the conversation that way is you've opened the door for collaboration. You've already laid the groundwork that says, I want to work with you. I'm not here to defeat you. I'm here to address a problem together. To further invite them into neutral territory, you want to state the problem and own your part. Now you did this work in the last video. This is the way you get them to actually hear what's important to you by addressing what you can identify as probably important to them. So it can look like this. Look, here's what I see that we're facing right now. As I understand it, here's what I think the problem is. And here's how I can see that I have contributed to that problem. And I just want to apologize for that. Can you imagine hearing that from somebody else? Here's what the problem is, at least how I can see it. Here's how I understand that I've contributed to it, and I want to apologize. That's a big deal. It may not sound like a big deal right now watching this video, but it's a big deal in the midst of conflict. And let me illustrate another picture to show you what you've done when you can come from that direction. When the person saw you coming, or when they're preparing for this conversation, they were storing up all the things that you've done wrong. All those bees in their helmet, remember from the last video we talked about. They're just buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, and so they're filling up their bag because they can't think about what you want. They don't care about what you want because they're pretty sure all that you want is to destroy them and make their life miserable. So what they've done is they've stored up all the things that you've done wrong in this bag full of ammo, and they're ready to launch a grenade. They're ready to launch it at you when you come. But when you say, here's how I can see I've contributed to this problem, you snip the bottom of that bag. All the ammo falls out, at least all the ammo that you've addressed. All of it falls out. They go to reach for something, it's not there. Now, you may not hit everything. There may be something they're really ticked off about and you may be oblivious to it. Sometimes it's big. So just when you think, yeah, I snipped the bag, I've got all the ammo out, they reach in and they grab a rocket launcher and it's mounted. But because you've prepared this conversation collaboratively, you've drawn them into neutral ground, they're hesitant to pull the trigger. And so when you see that rocket launcher come out, you can just deal with that. You can acknowledge it and say, wow, that's a big weapon you have there. That's a big rocket launcher. I didn't even realize that was in there. Let's talk about that. And I'm going to take that off your hands and I'm going to set it down here so nobody gets hurt. So address those things. If they say, that's all great and I forgive you, great. They may not forgive you. That's not your problem. If they pull out something else, just deal with that. Acknowledge it. Be graceful. Okay? I promise when you do this, you're going to set the pace for a great conversation. Oftentimes, when you do this, you open the door for the other person to step in and say, wow, yeah, I guess I can really see where I've messed some things up too, or I guess I haven't really been all that patient with you, or on and on and on, and they'll start to address the things that kind of weighed heavy on you. If they don't address everything, you don't have to worry about it. If they don't apologize for everything or beg forgiveness for everything, that's not really your problem. What you're focused on is the solution you're trying to get to. And that is what's going to keep your conversation going in the right direction. Now, finally, you get to say what you want. I know, you've been going, JP, I did all this work on figuring out what I want. When do I get to tell them what I want? Well, the time is now. You have started collaboratively, you've stated the problem, you've owned your part, and now you can say what you want. You can tell them what you want based on all the things that you figured out during your hard work that you did during the first video. Because now what you want doesn't sound selfish or petty. Now what you want is in line with your values. And when you say it, it's going to come across a lot differently. Along with telling somebody what you want to offer ideas about how to get there. And after you offer your ideas on how to get there, invite their feedback. It's super important. So it looks like this. Here's what I can see we're dealing with. Here's how I can see that I've contributed to this problem, and I apologize for that. Maybe a little dialogue happens in between there. Then you say, okay, here's what I really want for us in this situation. And here's some ideas I have for how to get there. What do you think? What are your thoughts? That's crucial. What are your thoughts? Because they want to still be part of the solution. They want to feel like you're still working with them, and you need to really be working with them. Listen to what they have to say. They might say, I like your idea, great, let's run with it. And you're good, you move on. But oftentimes it takes a little bit of brainstorming. and tossing ideas back and forth. And this could easily get you sucked back into a tough situation or a cycle of conflict. But remember how far you've come and really work through this collaboratively. You've put the work into having a great conversation, and I imagine if you've walked through the steps, you've experienced results that are different than you've ever experienced before. You've confronted real issues, and you've had a positive outcome. And that feels amazing. So let's talk about how to keep a good thing going. It can be really easy to have a great conversation, to walk through a conflict, to have great results, and then to say, we're good, we've done it, we got this. And then when the next conflict comes up, your relationship falls apart. I see it happen all the time. You do great, and then your relationship falls apart. Now, if anybody watches football and they saw the 2015 Seattle Seahawks season, you know they had a tendency to do great in the first and second quarters and then sit on their victories and lose the game. This is not going to be you. You are not going to lose the overall game. You're actually going to improve your game every time you encounter conflict. That's why in the next video, we're going to talk about how to keep a good thing going, how to keep your momentum when you've experienced great results so that you can do it time and time again. And this becomes more and more natural way of relating to other people and relating to life in general. Because really, when you learn to tackle these things, everything changes in your life. So before you go out and tackle this conversation, I want you to download the quick guide to setting up a great conversation. That talks about environment, how to approach somebody, how to schedule a conversation, all the things that you're going to need to know when you're setting up a conversation to make sure that you have all that you need to be successful. I just love giving away free stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.